It's the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 2010. November 11th, Veterans Day. And once again, Hometown Cable Cameras are here with me, Gordy Little, at Post 20, the American Legion on the Quarry Road in Plattsburgh. Every year, as you know, we've been here with our Hometown Cable Cameras as Post 20 celebrates Veterans Day with a ceremony to honor all of our veterans, past and present, who served their country with honor and dignity to keep us free. This year, the guest speaker will be Deputy National Commodore Thomas Venezio, currently serving as Deputy National Commodore Operations and Atlantic East. Previously, he served as the District Commodore of the 1st District Southern Region, 2007-2008, District Vice Commodore, Chief of Staff, 2005-2006, District Rear Commodore Activities, New York North, in 2002-2003. We're proud to have him here today. Proud to have a very nice group gathering as we're downstairs in the American Legion at about 10 minutes before the 11th hour to greet many of our friends, old and new, who are here for the ceremonies on this Veterans Day. A very special tribute to veterans everywhere for all they've done for our community, and we love to celebrate their efforts past and present. Special salute to veterans who are serving in foreign places as we're here today. We hope you enjoy our program. I know you will. There will be music by the PHS band, there will be speeches, there will be the laying of wreaths, and a good time will be had by all. Stay tuned for Veterans Day Ceremonies 2010.
We'll get people to calm down next week. I want to welcome everybody here today, Veterans Day. Once a widely celebrated holiday, is increasingly forgotten by many Americans. As a nation, we remember all Americans who served on active duty in the armed forces. But those who died always remain prominent in our memories. They have a special time of mourning reserved for Memorial Day. Just a note to everyone, it was on this date, November 11th, 1921, when Warren G. Harding, President, entombed the World War II soldier into the Tomb of the Unknown in Arlington National Cemetery 2 years ago. With the colors being in place, if you would rise, salute the colors. It will be followed by the singing, or by the, we'll salute the colors and we'll do the chapel. And salute. 2. This time I'd like to call on Roger Van Gelder to read the chaplain's prayer in place of Ron Wood, who is in Fletcher Allen. Roger.
I'm sure not Ron Wood, but God understands. I hope I do this justice for the veterans and for Ron and for the Lord. Almighty God, with whom live the spirits of those who depart from here in the Lord, and with whom the souls of the faithful after death are in strength and gladness, we give you hearty thanks for the good examples of all your servants who have finished their course in faith, do now rest from their labor. The cemeteries have become their bivouac area. The cold and silent stone or bronze whispers the name of the one who sleeps beneath the little green sod tent that marks their dwelling place. As a gentle breeze kisses our cheeks and awakens our silent, muted tongues, we pledge anew the flame of valor, love, and honor, which shall never be extinguished. To those now silent battalions marching before you, O God, we pledge for renewed strength and power to preserve all for which they died. As we humble hearts, we pray our reverent respect to our departed comrades. We recall their accomplishments and promise to keep the peace for which they brought and paid for their blood. let us further concentrate our living to the real America worth fighting for. Through the many blessings you have given us, grant that we may, with compassion, share with widows and the orphans left to our care. Grant, O Lord, to each courage to trust you always, not in the things of this world, but in your might and power, that your ways may glorify your name now and forevermore. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Roger. At this time, I'll call on Cortland Wood to sing both the national anthem and the Canadian anthem. He'll be accompanied by the Plattsburgh High School Band. Canadian.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriots, in our command, with growing hearts we see thee rise, thou soon more strong and free. As farm and guide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. On Canada, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Please be seated. This time, I'd like to call on Post 20 Commander Dale McMahon with a few short words of welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Such a perfect day to be here to celebrate all our veterans. We have an outstanding crowd, standing room only, and it's such an honor to be standing here amongst you, the veterans and the families that support the veterans. If it wasn't for the families and the veterans, we wouldn't have this great nation that we have. I'll be around after the ceremony. We have a great list of speakers and come up for you. So I hope you enjoy the day, and anyone that wants to speak with me afterward, I'll be more than happy to speak with anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Walter, they wanted to turn this mic up.
No, it's good down. It's good now.
Good? Okay. This time I'd like to call on Unit 20 Auxiliary President Gloria Briette for a few words.
Good morning and welcome to Post 20. We are here to remember our veterans of yesteryears who fought, and some gave their lives so we could be here today, and those that are fighting and losing their lives today. We also want to remember our POW and MIA. May our Heavenly Father watch over them, keep them safe, and bring them all home safe. Thank you all for coming today. God bless.
Chuck Dapo, you were here?
Yes.
Would you want to say a few words on behalf of the Sons, seeing that the Commander Lloyd can't be here?
Welcome, everyone. I'd just like to say that as a son of the American Legion, my dad was in World War II. I appreciate every veteran, and the Sons of the American Legion, that's their goal, is to support every veteran that there is. And any time that we can help, that's what we're here for. But I'd like to thank you all for what you did for us to give us the freedoms that we have today. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'll have a selection by the Plattsburgh High School Band under the directions of Linda Sullivan. I'd like to call on Carl Dufour, Vice Commander of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, to read the Governor's Proclamation.
Thank you. Whereas each year since 1926, America has set aside an official day in November to pay tribute to the men and the women who have served in our nation's armed forces, honoring them for their dedication to patriotic duty in times of peace and war. And whereas once celebrated as Armistice Day to recognize the end of World War I.
Get out of your way.
This special day is now observed as Veterans Day, a day of tribute to all of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen, who throughout the history of our great nation carried out a vital role in defending America and preserving freedom and peace around the world. And whereas our country's history is one of sacrifice, from the first days of the American Revolution through the tragedy of the Civil War, the devastation of 2 wars, conflicts in Korea, Southeast Asia, and the Persian Gulf, as well as other global deployments that put the uniformed members of our armed forces in harm's way. And today we are engaged in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting evil forces of terrorism. And whereas those who serve before them, this new generation of veterans, are proud to defend our nation. And we must remember that these brave Americans in uniform are at great risk, facing injury, capture, or death at the hands of our enemies. Their dedication assures us that generations to follow, that Americans' precious way of life, one of freedom, opportunity, and happiness, will endure and continue to flourish. And whereas More than 50 million men and women have served in our armed forces from the founding days of our nation to the current conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we are fortunate that more than 23 million of these veterans are alive and still with us, including approximately 988,000 former servicemen and women living in the state of New York. And whereas we as witnesses America's commitment to battle terrorism and tyranny, we must remind our children and younger citizens that the cause of freedom is worth defending, and that the previous generations have done so tenaciously with an enormous courage. And whereas on Veterans Day, we acknowledge with grateful appreciation what our veterans have done and what today's men and women in uniform are continuing to do to make America and the world a safer, more peaceful, and better place in which to live and raise our families. We certainly owe great debt to those who have given so much to America, an obligation we can never fully repay and which we must never forget. Now therefore, I, David A. Patterson, Governor of the State of New York, do hereby proclaim November the 11th, 2010, Veterans Day.
Thank you, Carl. Now we'll have the laying of the wreath. Representing World War I, Napoleon Lake. Representing World War II, Richard Turnbull. Representing the Korean War, Glenn Clausen. Representing the Vietnam War, Walter Samodi. Representing Lebanon-Grenada conflict, Rick Smith. Representing the Panama conflict, Leeward Ashline. Representing Panama, or Desert Storm, rather, Ben Edwards. Representing Iraqi freedom in Afghanistan, Tom Conlon, whose son is in Afghanistan. Representing MIA POW, as you know, we normally have Mr. Booth, who is a former World War II POW, but he just got home from open heart surgery. So Mary Samodi, the local MIA POW chairman, will fill in. Gold Star Mothers, Bernice Conley, escorted by Walter Samodi. American Legion Post 20, Commander Dale McMahon. Representing the Veterans of Foreign War, Post 125, Lanny LaValle. Representing Royal Canadian Legion Branch 34, Roland Duard. Representing Unit 20 Auxiliary, President Gloria Briette. Representing the 48th, Warren Breeden. Representing the Blue Star Moms and Dads, Charles Smith, World War II veteran with his uniform on.
That's amazing.
Representing the Tuskegee Airmen, Roosevelt Williams. At this time, is there any other organization or individual who wishes to lay a wreath? We'll now have the rifle salute by Post 20 Honor Guard, followed by taps. Please rise. You may be seated. Our first speaker today is going to be the Town of Plattsburgh Supervisor, Bernie Bassett.
Thank you, Art. I have to say this is the fifth year I've been able to be here as representing the town of Plattsburgh, representing all of our constituents, and certainly appreciate all of you and all you've done. But after 5 years, in some form, shape, or another, I always get down to the same two thoughts. So I'm not going to argue with it this year. I have two thoughts. One is to post 20. Thank you so much. Again, so many ways during this past year, this organization has truly built what I often call the solid fabric of a quality community. We're here for your community in so many different ways, as well as for today. It's just outstanding, as we said, to see a standing room only. You're doing something right, and you're doing something that's appreciated, something that's needed, something that's fulfilling. I see some very familiar faces from 5 years ago, and I see some new faces. And that's a very, very good thing. So post 20, let's do it another year. Thank you so much. We do need to be reminded, and you do just an outstanding job of that. Number two, I always have the same word come to mind, and that word is heroes. And truly, our veterans and all the various roles that veterans played during conflict or not. It's a major role. We often talk about a hero as, you know, an ordinary person that does an extraordinary thing. The moment you choose to serve, the moment you accept the request to serve, you are no longer ordinary. And we know that. We appreciate that. You do end up becoming our heroes in so many ways, the sacrifices. You know, now and then I hear someone say, oh, it's Saturday and I have to work. Oh my, how about being gone away from home for many months or longer? Those of you that remained home wondering when or if your loved ones would come back. Certainly extraordinary people, and the people that become the heroes, you know, and as I look around and I'm thinking, gee, what other event? And I don't think Veterans Day is endangered. I see it as something that maybe we are thriving for. We need, what other kind of event as positive as this, though I'm sure it has many mixed memories for all of you here today, but what other event could bring together young citizens, older citizens, men, women, residents of a variety of beliefs, a variety of views politically, mayors, supervisors, all kinds of people from our community with a single common focus today because of you to say thank you. And on behalf of the town of Plattsburgh, I truly do thank you. You are what we need, giving us a character and a model for behavior that is sorely lacking. So keep up the good work. The fight goes on. Continue to be extraordinary. Thank you, Art.
Thank you, Bernard, for them fine words. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to call on the mayor of the city of Plattsburgh, Donald Kaspertek.
Thank you very much. It is a real honor and a privilege to be here. I know many, many people here today, old and young. And it is a sad day, it's a special day, and yet it's also a proud day. My message is very simple and my comments will be brief. I cannot thank enough, not only on the behalf of everyone in the North Country, but myself personally, to all of the veterans here today, their families, and their relatives and friends who have provided our freedoms, protected us, and shared all of their feelings, good and bad, over the years when you all served. I am really overwhelmed when I come to these events and see the wonderful people that have helped us, protected us, and defended our freedoms. And I just want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. Without all of you, I could not be mayor. We wouldn't have our folks up here. We wouldn't have our quality of life. And I truly am honored to be invited every time this event is here. And I just want to thank everyone involved. People do not take you all for granted. I can guarantee you that. And I want you to remember that when you leave today, that the good folks, not only in the North Country, but this country, truly appreciate what everybody has done here and all your sacrifices. And it is a real privilege for me to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to call on the Veterans of Foreign War 125 Commander Lenny LaValle for a few words.
Friends, family, honored guests, and veterans. As Commander of Post 125, I would like to thank the American Legion of Post 20 for the opportunity presented to unite the Post for our Veterans Day celebration. Over the years, veterans and community people have voiced their concerns about the celebration. Since a number of veterans are members of both posts, many have stated that it is a difficult decision to opt for one post celebration over another. With that in mind, a few weeks ago, Art Maggie, David Graves, and myself met to discuss uniting the post for this celebration. The result of that decision is today. We sincerely hope you enjoy this day, for this day is for us, veterans.
Thank you, Lenny. This time it gives me great pleasure to call on the Assembly Lady from the 114th Assembly District, recently re-elected, Janet Dupree.
Thank you, Art. It's always such a pleasure to come to an event at Post 20 and to look out at the crowd that's here. I speak at many, and I've spoken at many veterans events where there's not the overwhelming support and recognition that we always see here at Post 20, and I'm delighted to be a part of it. And I want to tell you that over the past few weeks, I very sincerely have thought a lot about our veterans. We all just came through a campaign season that certainly lasted way too long, had too much venom and anger in it. Across this country, in every state, in every district, at every level. And I think as all of us got where we wanted to just flip off the TV and turn off the radio, maybe not even read the newspapers, I thought of how fortunate we are that all of you here, some of you I've known all my life, and I'm not going to mention names, but you know who you are, and that's where I get in trouble if I pick people out. So, but all of you who fought so hard and sacrificed so much that we could have the freedom of our campaigns. Let's all hope that we get a little more civility into them in the future, that we've seen the worst of the worst, and we move forward. But I really thought about it and thought how fortunate. As bad as it got, nobody's shooting anybody. As angry as it was, we moved on, and we had free elections, and people made their choices. And because of you, it just doesn't get any better than that. So 2 weeks from today, when we celebrate Thanksgiving and move quickly into the wonderful, blessed season of Christmas, our thoughts again are going to be, and our thanks to each and every one of you who allow people like me to celebrate surrounded by my family, and the recognition that too many of you did not have that opportunity much too often as you served on behalf of our country. And certainly our heartfelt thanks and prayers to those who will not celebrate this Christmas with their loved ones because they're serving in foreign wars for our continued freedom. From the bottom of my heart, my sincere thanks and love to each and every one of you who have given us our freedom.
This time, we're going to have another selection from the Plattsburgh High School Band. Thank you, Linda, and students. Our featured speaker today hails at the present time from the Albany area, Deputy National Commodore of Operations in Atlantic Area East. Commodore Benizio is presently serving as the Deputy National Commodore Operations of Atlantic East. Previously, he served as the District Commodore of the 1st District Southern Region in 2007 to 8. District Vice Commodore, Chief of Staff in 2005-2006, and District Rear Commodore, Activities New York North, 2002 to 2003. Commodore Benizio graduated from the State University of New York in Otsego in 1974 with a Bachelor of Science degree, and in 1979 from the State University of New York at Albany with a Master's of Science degree. He also completed advanced graduate work at North Adams State University in Massachusetts and the State University of New York at Stony Brook. Commodore Benizio recently retired as Vice President of the International Center of Leadership and Education and Executive Director of the Successful Practices Network. He had previously retired in 2005 after 31 years in public education as a teacher, principal, and district administrator. Since joining the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, Commodore Benizio has held every elected position up to District Commodore. Additionally, he has held appointed positions at every level, from the Flotilla Staff Officer to District Decorate Officer. Commodore Benizio also served as the Director of Auxiliary Staff as a District Qualifications Officer. He is an auxiliary member and is qualified as a coxswain, instructor, vessel examiner, and qualifications examiner. He has been active in operations, public education, program visits, and the vessel examination program. His awards include the following: Auxiliary Accommodation Award, twice over. Transportation 9/11 Award. Auxiliary Achievement Award, twice. Auxiliary Sustained Service Award, 10 times. And several unit awards, including the Presidential Unit Citation. Secretary DOT Outstanding Unit Award, Coast Guard Unit Commendation Ops, 3 times. Coast Guard Meritorious Unit Commendation, twice over. Coast Guard Meritorious Team Commendation Operations, 9 times. And Special Operations Service Ribbon twice. This time it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Deputy National Commodore Thomas Benizio.
That was a very long introduction. It's great to be here with you this morning. Special thanks to all of you and to all our special guests this morning for joining in. I was impressed with the Plattsburgh High School band, did a great job. They could be sleeping in today. And instead of taking the day off, they're here with us, which is a wonderful thing. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. Truly honored and humbled to be among you, our veterans. I've had some wonderful opportunities in my career, and I wanted to share a couple of things that, to me, make my experience in Veterans Day so special. A few years back, I was active in a program called the Veterans History Project. And it was a project designed to videotape veterans' stories and catalog those at the Library of Congress. And I would say to you as veterans, if you have not told your story, you should do that. And if anyone is interested in doing that, Carl, I will happily facilitate that. Your stories are critically important that they're saved for future generations. I had one interview I did, however, that was particularly special. And my wife and I were talking to our daughter and son-in-law last night about some of the interviews we had done. And they were all very moving. One of them, though, was particularly interesting, was a woman, nurse, Lieutenant Colonel Frances Liberty. What a wonderful name. Well, here's the important part. Frances Liberty was born right here in Plattsburgh. She had a 29-year career in the United States Army. In her first assignment during World War II, communications got a little messed up, and this group of nurses landed at Anzio before the battle was over. They lost 8 nurses. Frances went on to serve in Korea and Vietnam. She had an outstanding career. So a little bit about the hometown hero who I had the great opportunity to meet. Sadly, Frances passed away a couple years ago. And that's why I felt it was so important that I'd had the opportunity to tell her story. The second thing that always comes back to me on Veterans Day, Gail and I, my wife Gail, and I had the opportunity to lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery. I have to tell you, it doesn't get any better than that. An extremely special experience. And the third experience, Gail and I just had last week. We returned on Monday from Hawaii. We went to Honolulu. More importantly, we went to Pearl Harbor. I got to go to the Arizona Memorial. There is nothing more special than that. To this day, that ship leaks about 2 quarts of diesel oil every day from the original fuel tanks on that ship. When you get there and you smell that diesel fuel and you see those ripples in the water and you see all the names on the wall, it's an amazing experience. From there, we went to the Air Museum of the Pacific. That's on Ford Island, the airstrip that was heavily bombed that day on December 7, 1941. And we finished our tour with a tour of the USS Missouri. And we got to stand in the exact spot where the surrender agreement was signed. So that was my most recent experience. And I just have to tell you, for me, Veterans Day, when I reflect on those experiences, is a very important day. So, I was asked, however, today to talk a little bit about the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So let me tell you about who we are and what we do. Because you're fortunate to have a Coast Guard Auxiliary flotilla right here in Plattsburgh. Our organization was established in 1939. And at that time, it was called the United States Coast Guard Reserve, and remained that for only 2 years. Now, in 1939, the Coast Guard Reserve was established. It was a totally volunteer civilian organization, as it remains, as the auxiliary remains today. In 1941, with the outbreak of World War II, the organization was renamed, and the Coast Guard Reserve and Auxiliary Act of 1941 was established. And what it did was created the Coast Guard Reserve as we now know it, as the reserves of all branches, yet maintained the Coast Guard Auxiliary as a civilian volunteer force. During World War II, 50,000 members served in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, unpaid volunteers. They patrolled our coastlines, they walked the beaches, they protected the homeland. After the war, Coast Guard Auxiliary took on the recreational boating safety mission for the United States Coast Guard. And so they began to teach public education courses, boating safety courses. They began to do vessel safety checks, voluntary safety checks of boat safety equipment. And they became more active in an operations program that is search and rescue, both on the water and in the air. The result today is that the Coast Guard Auxiliary members in 2009 gave 4.5 million hours of volunteer service to this country. The price tag to that, for that, to the United States government, if they had to pay for that, would be about $92 million. By the way, there are some of my colleagues in the room from the Coast Guard Auxiliary today, and you'll notice how nicely dressed they are in their uniforms. By the way, they pay for those themselves. Pretty much they pay for everything themselves. It is a wholly self-funded volunteer civilian organization. In 2009, we saved 250 lives on the water. In those boating safety courses in 2009, 3,500 courses attended by 75,000 people. And those vessel safety checks I told you about, we do about 120,000 a year. In recent years, there has been, if any of you are boaters, you know that a few years back when jet skis became kind of the hot thing, there was a real concern about safety. Jet skis accounted for 6% of the registered boats here in New York State, but in those early years they were responsible for 33% of the accidents and fatalities. We worked very closely with the state of New York as they implemented their requirement for boating safety courses, and again volunteered to teach those courses. In more recent years, the last 2 years, we've seen a tremendous increase in fatalities in manually propelled vessels, canoes, kayaks, and rowboats. Kayaks are becoming quite the thing. In fact, 3 years ago, the fatality rate among those paddlecraft exceeded the fatality rate in powered vessels. And so once again, we work closely with the state and the Coast Guard to get the message out about how folks needed to be more safe in that environment. Pleased to say that we reduced the fatality rate by 40%. So that's what we do. But beyond that, in 1996, Congress reauthorized the Coast Guard Auxiliary Act. And this time, when Congress did that, they allowed the Commandant to use the Coast Guard Auxiliary in any way he wanted. So the only things today that we don't get involved in is direct law enforcement and combat. What it means is you will see our auxiliary members in just about every imaginable role. We have cooks, chefs at Coast Guard stations. We have our members serving on Coast Guard cutters. We have them serving at small boat stations. If you're out here on Lake Champlain and you radio station Burlington, it's a pretty good chance that the person that's talking to you on the radio is a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, not an active duty Coast Guard member. We have some of our members today who serve as interpreters and are actually deployed with the Coast Guard and also the Navy as they go into foreign waters where they need language specialists. We have some of our members currently on naval vessels deployed in Africa. In addition to that, you have to understand that the Coast Guard has 40,000 members, active duty and reserve. Coast Guard Auxiliary has another 30,000. So we become a true force multiplier for the Coast Guard. And so in major events like 9/11, our members had a very active role in patrolling the waters of the Hudson and New York Harbor. Several of us, including my wife and I, spent time in New York City the day following that tragedy, working in logistics and control and command. When Katrina hit, our members were deployed to the Gulf and served there in incident command capacities. And actually, after a while, when FEMA was struggling, FEMA actually hired some of our folks to help them out. And then finally, in Deepwater Horizon, our members were there again in incident control, incident command, and also in a variety of roles around pollution inspection and communications. So we have a very diverse and varied experience. You have a very active unit locally who, again, teach those boating safety courses, or out on the water here, Lake Champlain, trying to make the lake a safer place, and also stand ready to support this country and the United States Coast Guard in any way possible. We, like you, are proud of our community and our country. We, like you, are proud patriots. And so I want to close by just saying, again, thank you for your unselfish, amazing service to this great nation. God bless you.
This time, I'd like to call on Vice Commander Carl Dufour for a few introductions and a little reading he's got.
Thank you again, Art. We've got two additional guests that you have not met yet, and it's my pleasure to do that. We have the District 1 Southern Region, Division 15 Commander for the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, Margaret Malone. Would you please stand? We also have the Assistant National Commodore for Readiness Support, U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, Gail Venezio. Thanks for being here today. I've got a thing that Art handed me here a little while ago. It's like a Dear Abby, except that this one's called Dear Annie. It says, years back, Ann Landers printed a poem my father wrote for his own newspaper column. With November 11 approaching, I thought you might like to print it again. And here's what it says. Just a common soldier. He was getting old and paunchy, and his hair was falling fast. And he sat around the Legion telling stories of the past, of a war that he had fought in, and the deeds that he had done. And his exploits with his buddies, they were heroes, every one. And though sometimes to his neighbors, his tales became a joke, all his Legion buddies listened, for they knew thereof he spoke. But we'll hear this tale no longer, for old Bill has passed away. And the world's a little poor, for a soldier died today. He will not be mourned by many, just his children and his wife, for he lived an ordinary and quiet, uneventful life. He held a job and raised a family quietly going on his way. And the world won't know his passing, though a soldier died today. If we cannot do him honor while he's here to praise, then at least let's give him homage at the ending of his days. Perhaps just a simple headline in the paper that would say, "Our country is in mourning for a soldier who died today."
This time, I want to thank the news media that has shown up to support us. Our hometown cable, Gordy Little, who is here every year and gets us on the air many, many times. He's like an icon here. Thank you, Gordy. Lake Champlain Weekly, Rick Smith. Over here. Jeremiah Papano from the Plattsburgh Press Republican. I see Channel 5 just was in here for quite a while and then they just snuck out. They have other services coming up on the airbase, I believe. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to thank Linda Sullivan and all her young men and women who gave their time today to come and join us, to show their patriotism, Americanism, and devotion to the veterans that served. We thank you, Linda, and your band. I want to thank Assemblyman Dupree for coming and joining us. Supervisor Bernie Bassett, Mayor Casperdyke, DFW Commander Lanny LaValle, and I can't forget my good friend, Mrs. Conlon. As she tells me every year, she's still 39 and whole. I want to thank the Post 20 Honor Guard for doing a super job. And I want to also thank all the people that volunteered to lay wreaths for us. It's a great honor. At this time, if you arrive, we'll have the benediction by Unit 20 Chaplain, Mary Fredette.
Lord, we pray for peace in the world. We thank thee for the people who stand for truth and which that is right. Give your blessings, Lord, to our veterans who have given so much for our freedom. Remember those who have given us a free sacrifice, and we pray that they will never be forgotten. Be with us, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
This time, I'd like to call on Corbin Wood for singing the God Bless America. If the band wants to play it.
Our arrangements don't line up, so we'll have just a couple of measures that won't be right, but we'd be happy to play along with you.
We'd love it. We would love it.
Excuse our couple of measures we're missing. Is that okay, Corbin? Sure.
Would you please join hands as Corbin sings God Bless America? As soon as the band is ready. I know we put them on the spot. But we really appreciate it.
Starting at 25.
Thank you, Linda. I as a true veteran, we can always win something, right? That concludes our services today. I want to thank everyone for coming. There is soup and sandwiches upstairs. Compliment to the ladies auxiliary. The auxiliary, or the band can please join us too. Get them hot chocolate or whatever, sodas, whatever they wish. Again, thank you all for coming.
And who knows where we're going to be next time in our little corner.
Can I ask you